Welcome to the UEFA Champions League Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the west coast of the U.S., Josh Lander, joined as always by Dan Tracey across the pond. How are you today, sir?
Yeah, very well, thank you. We just knocked off the first 2 or 4 Champions League matches in our previous episode, so I'm really looking forward to the next 2 because I've got some great tips lined up for the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that we played it safe by any means. In the last 2 games, we have some nice plus odds that we can get in a number of places that we feel good about in those first 2 games. But definitely a bit more fun here, I think, especially in this first matchup of the day, Real versus Chelsea. I do want to remind you, before we jump right into that, to make sure to like and subscribe to that page so you can check out every video we're bringing you about each and every one of these UEFA Champions League games. Dan also is throwing up all of these picks up on thelines.com. Want to make sure you're checking out all the great content we have up there. And use the odds finder tool as well that I tell you guys about every time. Make sure you're getting the best odds available to you across these books that are giving us bets on this tournament. Dan, let's go ahead and jump right into our first match that I know we're very much so looking forward to speaking about, Real and Chelsea. I will just throw it out for everybody as this game is in Spain. Real Madrid is minus 140 to win in regulation. Chelsea plus 390 to win in regulation, and a draw plus 280. So obviously we are a bit more heavily leaning towards Real Madrid, or at least the odds makers are in this one, Dan. And I believe you are as well for your first bet, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you look at Chelsea in the past week or so, it's all gone bonkers, isn't it? You know, they've got rid of Graham Potter. They brought in Frank Lampard for his second stint as an interim coach to the end of the season. So they're in a huge state of flux. The worst thing you need is a trip to Real Madrid, you know, and then they're sort of admittedly now thinking, right, we've got nothing to play for on the domestic front. Let's put all our eggs in the basket and try and win the Champions League. But Real Madrid are the holders. And when they're the holders, they don't really like to let go of the grip of their trophy. So they're going to be in a bit of a problem there. Now, when you look at the odds that you just said, minus 143, minus 150, etc. for a home win, that's not going to make any interest here. We're not having that. However, I've looked at the spread, or I think it's the handicap at my end of the Atlantic, and I've gone for Chelsea to have a 2.5 goal head start, which means if Real Madrid win by 3 clear goals in the match itself, you get plus 500 odds. So that is, I don't know, like a 3-0 win, 4-1. If it was 4-1, you'd add Chelsea's 2.5, so it would be 4 playing 3.5, etc., etc. So as long as Real Madrid win by 3 goal margin, that handicap that Chelsea have been given would be wiped out, and we managed to win plus 500 on this bet.
Plus 500 sounds nice to start off this quarter league, this round of the quarter league anyway for these 2 teams. And I would agree, obviously, everything's in flux for Chelsea right now and continuing to struggle pretty much everywhere at this point. And their form is shaky, and it's tough to really oppose Real when they're at home right now at Bernabeu. And I would say 2.5 goals, it's steep, but it's definitely worth the plus 500 when you look at the juice. And I like the fact that we go a bit bolder. And if you want to take a minus 140 to Real, for Real to come out with a victory at the end of this, and you just want to make sure you get a little bit on that, I'm fine with that as well. But I would much prefer to at least put a few units there on a nice comeback at plus 500. So anywhere else that you look in this one, I know goals I don't think goals will be easy to come by for Chelsea. And Real, when they do start scoring, it's not out of the question that they put 4 in the back of the net in this one. But is anything with the total that you see here?
Yeah, I like the look of Real Madrid scoring in both halves. So we're completely going away with whatever happens in terms of the outcome. Result not too important here, but obviously we want Real Madrid to score at least 2 goals, 1 per half. So if we kind of feed that back into our first pick where we're saying that the handicap of 2.5 needs to be eroded for Real Madrid to win, that being by 3 clear goals, we don't want all those 3 goals to come in one half. In theory, we want 1 in the first half, 2 in the second half, or vice versa. So as long as Real Madrid get on the score sheet, either side of the interval, this one's a winner. And it's almost a sort of fail-safe that if the first one doesn't come on because we've gone a little bit bolder, let's say Chelsea get a shock draw or even a shock win, as long as Real Madrid get their 2 goals, 1 either side of the half-time, we've still got a winning bet. So it's just kind of stepped back a little bit and not kind of gone bold twice. We're kind of just hopefully going to win both. But I do feel that actually if you just want to play it a little safer, just sort of spread the load of where Real Madrid are going to get their goals.
Yeah, and at plus 200 for that, especially at home, where you can bet that they're going to have the strength of the crowd behind them to come out firing and not necessarily wait in any way. Maybe just put Chelsea in such a bad position when you score first against a team who is struggling offensively, and you really get in the back of their minds that they not only need one goal here, they might need more than that at this point, especially when they're playing on the road like this. I think you're in a good place. That would be where the only thing I would worry about is, are they going to score early, or are they going to come out slowly? And they rarely do come out slowly, to be honest, whether they're giving up an early goal and having to come back, or they're scoring first and running away with it. That's been sort of their MO since last year, as you mentioned, when they took down the cup and are defending champs as such. So let's move on to the other game, and another darling, if you will, from the Italian league here, Napoli, who I don't think we can even really consider a dark horse anymore, as they've become so prominent and known and continue to dominate Serie A, where they're actually taking on their fellow counterpart in Serie A, AC Milan, in this one. And Milan, say what you will about playing outside of Champions League, they've not looked good, but you can say that in the Champions League, against lesser competition than I think we're about to see them take on in Napoli, have been decent at this point, and they're plus 175 at home to win this one, which is obviously a pretty nice number for a home team. But Napoli's also at plus 160, and they're obviously the away squad here for this round of this leg of the tournament. But plus 160 for one of the better teams left to pull out the first victory doesn't seem too bad, does it?
No, not at all. And I think that although the sportsbooks are telling us this is going to be the closest game of the four, I think they've leaned too much into Milan's recent 4-0 win over Napoli in the league. And because of that, I feel Milan are overpriced somewhat. Now, if you look at that 4-0 win in the context of just looking down at this result, you'd go, wow, Milan have beaten Napoli 4-0. But what you don't really take into account is the fact that Napoli are going to win the Italian league title. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So if they pick up defeats along the way in the last sort of month or two, that's not the biggest shock, because they are literally saving themselves for these ties. Now, obviously, that 4-0 defeat is going to rev Napoli up for this one. Sort of take it easy in Serie A. Don't do anything stupid before you get to the Champions League, because this is the best chance Napoli are ever going to have of winning this tournament. We mentioned the bracket. It's wide open for them to reach the final at least. If they don't get to the final, that's going to be a massive disappointment. Also, if they don't get to the final, or maybe if they don't win it, this team is going to get torn apart, because all the European powerhouses are looking at the likes of Osimhen, that Georgian player, I can never pronounce his name, but those two names are going to be really on some shopping lists in the summer. So this is going to be their best chance. And I just feel that a lot of sportsbooks have looked at that 4-0 win and thought, actually, I think Milan could do something here. I don't see it. I'm putting all my money on Napoli at plus 160. Again, this is a Napoli team which has been one of, if not the best teams in Europe this season. They've scored 25 goals in the Champions League, which in itself is the most in the tournament. That's 3.13 on average per game. That's a fascinating number. So I just feel that at plus 160, even away from home, I'm going for Napoli.
Yeah, no, and they haven't had trouble scoring on the road, and I completely love the idea that they're getting, that Milan is overvalued at this point based on recent history. But if you take it into consideration, what are they, 18 points up in the cup to take home the Serie A Cup? So obviously that wasn't necessarily something, and you could even make the argument that they wouldn't want to show their hand too much before they take on AC once more. Not that these teams are unfamiliar with each other, but there's no reason to go out and put your best foot forward in a situation where you don't really have much to play for when you're playing the exact same team a mere week or two later in a tournament that you really, really care about. It's the equivalent of the postseason for them, if you will, at this point, versus worrying about winning games in the regular season. So, and as far as the goals in this game, obviously AC put up the 4 goals in the last game. I don't know that you expect them to do that necessarily, but perhaps there's still going to be a good amount of scoring in this one.
Yeah, I don't see AC Milan getting 4 goals themselves. I do see 4 goals at least being scored in the match. Now, I don't necessarily think it's going to be 4-0 to Napoli. It could be. There's no reason why it couldn't be at all. I do feel AC Milan are going to be good for a goal, maybe even 2. So if we're looking for that Napoli win, it could be a real barn burner. It could be 3-2, but I'm going to go for something like a 3-1. I think that was pricing itself at like 31-4, which is about plus 750 on your side of the Atlantic. Yep. So even that, that's worth a good shout. But I just feel that AC Milan are going to bring something. I don't think they're going to get completely blown away. But when you look at Napoli wanting that revenge for what happened a week or so ago, them wanting to really stamp their mark on the first leg, what they want to do really is make the second leg redundant. They want to get the job done in Milan, so Napoli's sort of second leg is just a formality, if nothing else. And the best way to do that is just smash Milan with loads of goals. And I think that because of that, you look at Napoli's prowess in attack, it's just sensational this season. And Milan have got their sort of indifferences in defence. So I think when you combine the two factors together, I think over 3.5 at plus 260 is a great starting price.
Yeah, and we talked about AC's ability to score a bit more after they were injured a while ago when they went through a really tough streak in Serie A, unable to pick up more than I think a win over a six games set there. But they have gotten a few players back at least in the past month or so, especially since the knockout stages of this tournament. So I think the goals at plus 260 once again. I love the juice that we're able to get back on all of the bets that we're making here, which is also just such a great reason to bet on football in general. So we will be continuing along with you guys as we continue on to the second leg of each of these quarterfinals after next week's games on Tuesday and Wednesday of this leg of the quarterfinals. So continue to follow along, like and subscribe. Definitely check out Dan's articles on thelines.com as well, so you can make sure that you are tracking what he's putting up there, as I am doing all the time. And until we see you next, happy betting.